Hello and welcome to the Stronger Marriage Podcast with Trey and Lee.
We're glad you joined us.
We are podcasting from Lubbock, Texas today, where we are up, had our big annual Christmas date last night. We do this every year.
Went to have a fantastic steak at a fancy steakhouse and a big platter of appetizers that we couldn't come anywhere close to finishing.
That is true. Yep. I was a little disappointed in myself, but it was really good. We encourage dating once a week or every other week, but an occasional fancy date is a healthy thing.
It is.
And we do that every Christmas. I would like to do it about once every 6 months. I'd be happy with that. But we both dress up. We make dinner reservations. We eat at a nice place. And we usually catch some kind of concert or show. Or last night it was a Christmas concert.
Yes. A lot of fun. And I agree. We need to do that a little more often.
Yeah. I like dress up dates. They're a little more fun. It just kind of feels pretty special.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Feels a little more special.
Christmas is around the corner. And today we're talking about 8 reasons why couples lose their spark. And a spark is something that a lot of times you feel in marriage. It's a product of love. And we get this question a lot. We have a lot of folks that message us and go, I just don't feel it with my spouse anymore. And we've talked that love's more than a feeling, but there should be some spark there.
That's right.
And if you're not feeling any spark, there's probably one of several reasons. We've kind of written down 8 today that couples lose their spark or their excitement, and we're going to kind of go through those. And I don't know that we have them in order, but probably number 1 is probably the one that is one of the biggest reasons. It just seems like we see this a lot.
Yeah, we preach all the time, that love is an action. You choose to love your spouse, and feelings are a byproduct of that. Feelings come because of the love you show your spouse. And so, that's kind of where this comes into play. If you're not feeling those sparks and those little occasional butterflies and whatever, it may be because you need to up your game in the way that you're showing love to your spouse. And so, we've got a list here of some things that maybe you have stopped doing that you need to start doing again.
Yeah, and we talk a lot about roommates versus soulmates. And a lot of couples go from being soulmates, where they start marriage, and kind of move into roommate, where they just kind of coexist in the same house and they pay bills together. And there's just not a lot of connection there. And that's kind of what this is about, when you just don't feel the connection of why that may be.
That's right. So you mentioned number 1 was a biggie. Tell us what that is.
Yeah, number 1 is a biggie. And as we're talking about reasons couples lose their spark, is a lot of times it's because one of the 2 people in marriage have actually started sparking with someone new. And that's a bad deal, of course. What we're talking about is when you make a connection with someone other than your spouse, all of a sudden that makes your connection with your spouse a lot less. And there are times where we have, somebody will write us and they'll just say, hey, all of a sudden my spouse has said that they just don't feel in love or connected to me anymore. And a lot of times, I'll write and say, so who have they reconnected with? Obviously there's somebody, and a few days later they'll write back and say, well, I kind of pinned my husband or wife in a corner, and they said, yes, they have built a friendship with a coworker at work or something. And so, that is unhealthy. We've talked about this lots on our podcast, unhealthy friendships. But one of the reasons couples lose their spark is they start sparking with somebody new, and that's not good. You've got to keep your spark with your spouse.
That's right, and that's not that's not love when you're sparking with somebody else. That's that infatuation of that new, that newness that you feel in a relationship, and that's a dangerous feeling when you're feeling that, that excitement and that infatuation.
If you're looking forward to hanging out with a coworker every day more than you are your spouse, man, you need to run from that relationship. That's not a healthy thing that you've got going on at work. You need to be connecting with your spouse more than you do anybody else. Pursue your spouse, connect with your spouse, and reconnect with your spouse, which is very easily possible. There's a lot of reasons you don't feel connected, and that's really more what some of these other
That's
things
right.
are about.
And that leads us into the rest, kind of the rest of our things we want to talk about today. Ways that you can build that spark back up with your spouse and not somebody else.
Yeah.
So, you ready to move on
Yeah,
to the
let's
next
go.
one? So, one of the big reasons why is because you quit pursuing your spouse.
Yeah.
You know, before marriage, you worked so hard to win your spouse. You were interested. You were having those feelings of infatuation, and you know, you wanted to be with this person as often as you could, and you did all kinds of things to get them interested in you as well.
Yeah, and if you've sparked or started sparking with someone else, you've started pursuing someone else, and you've got to stop that. But a lot of couples stop pursuing. They say "I do" in marriage, and a couple of years, few years down the road in marriage, they've just kind of gotten a little lazy, and they've quit putting out the effort. They've gone from going, I want to do all these things for you, to what is the minimum that I have to do to keep you happy. And that's not a great way to do marriage. You can't get comfortable in marriage. You can't just put your marriage on the back burner and think everything's going to be fine. You're actually either growing in your marriage, or you're probably going backwards. There's no standing still. And if you're not putting effort into your marriage, it's going the wrong way.
Yes.
And you have got to stop taking your spouse for granted, your marriage for granted, and pursue your spouse with a lot of those things you did pre-marriage, whether it's flowers or notes or bragging on one another or flirting one another, dating like we talked about. I mean, you just go down this long list of things you did to win your spouse that doesn't stop once you've won them.
Yeah. You said, you know, we get too comfortable. And I agree with that. You know, you should get to the point where you feel comfortable with your spouse, but you don't want to get comfortable to the point that you're just being lazy. You know, we fall into the routine of just doing the same thing day after day, and we quit the chase.
Yeah.
So don't be so lazy. If I can just be bold enough to say that you've gotten lazy, don't be so lazy that you've quit chasing and quit pursuing, because you got to just keep, you know, trying to ignite the spark, I guess, is what.
And if we say in our workshop a lot, you need to work as hard to keep your spouse as you did to win them in the first place.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop once you're married. You don't go, hey, I've won them, I've won her, she's mine, I can quit working so hard. And so that's another reason a couple loses their spark.
Yeah.
Another reason a couple loses their spark is they're unwilling to deal with maybe some problems they've got in their marriage. There's some issues, there's some problems, and you're just choosing to ignore it versus work on it. Now, I will admit problems are not fun. I don't look for problems. I don't wake up in the morning thinking, well, I hope we have some problems today. I try to avoid problems. But if there is some problems in my relationship, if I can work on them, it's going to make not only my marriage better, but it's going to reconnect us together. And you cannot sweep your issues under a rug.
That's right. You know, and this could be, you know, personality conflicts. This could be trying to maneuver differences in the way that you think things should be done in marriage. This could be financial problems. This could be, you know, in-law problems. The list is long. But I promise there is help out there for whatever problem there is that you're kind of, you know, at a standstill with in your marriage. Seek help.
Yeah.
You know, there are good books full of godly advice and wisdom. There are great Christian counselors out there that can just help you navigate over some little bumps that you hit along the way.
Yeah. And can we throw this out there, because this is really important. You may be in a marriage where you may think everything's fine and your spouse is saying, hey, we've got a few things we want to deal with. And you may think it's okay. And you may be going, why do you keep bringing these things up? You're only going to be making it worse by bringing them up all the time. Let me just say, if your spouse feels like there is an issue or a problem or a struggle that you need to work on, you need to take that serious. You need to validate their feelings. There's something obviously they see that you don't, and you just telling them it's not a big problem, or getting mad when they bring it up, or telling them, hey, you're making it worse by bringing it up, that's not fixing anything. It's going to actually make it worse. So you may be going, why does my spouse always think we got problems in marriage? They see something they want to work on. Don't ignore that. Step up, man up, and deal with whatever it is your spouse may feel like that there is an issue with.
Yeah, and as you said earlier, it's not fun. It's never fun, dealing with problems, but you always have to go through a little bit of pain to get to a better place. You see that when you work out at the gym. If you want to get to a better place in your physical health or whatever, you're going to work out and you're going to get sore and it's going to hurt. And that's kind of the same thing as, working through problems with your spouse.
Stronger,
there may be some
healthier.
uncomfortable, there may be some uncomfortable conversations that you're going to have. There may be a little bit of hurt feelings that you're going to have at some times, but if you'll maneuver it with love and grace, you will get past the pain and get to a much better, healthier, stronger place in your marriage.
Deal with those problems. Don't just ignore them and don't sweep them under a rug. Oh, I like this next one. This next one is, if you're not feeling the spark, it could be because you have stopped dating and doing fun things together.
Yeah.
You fell in love because you dated. It was kind of fuel for your marriage, and you shouldn't stop once you are married. You should continue to date. And dating is something that you want to do and you want to keep doing. We went last night. We said earlier, we went last night and had a date. We had fun. We made memories. That date will be something we talk about for a long time. We laughed. We laughed over jalapenos that were on the appetizer that were hot, that lit both of us up. I mean,
we wanted to keep eating them, but
they were so good. But it was like you had to put it in your mouth. And
that's right.
Yeah, exactly.
And we preach all the time. You've got to keep doing those things, and you've got to keep doing fun things together, because once the kids leave, you've got to have something in your relationship to fall back on other than just the kids. You can't just make marriage all about kids. So you've got to keep up the dating and doing the fun things together.
It's about building a friendship and spending time together. You can't, if couples don't fall out of love, they fall out of friendship, and you're gonna have to have some friends. Be friends with your spouse and hang out and do some stuff and build memories and become best friends. And so we preach this a lot, but it is important. Date and friendship. And so let's look at the next one. Yeah, the next one would be you haven't been honest. If there's some trust issues, if there is something that you haven't been honest about, even little things, it is going to cause some problems and help reduce that feeling of intimacy, soulmates, spark. Trust is one of the cores of your marriage, and it's got to be there.
Yeah. That could definitely cause the loss of a spark if you're feeling, a lack of trust or unfaithfulness. So, yeah, guard that trust in your marriage with everything you've got, because once it's lost, it is hard to rebuild.
Yeah.
It can be, but it's hard.
Yep. And if you're trying to rebuild some trust in your relationship, we have podcast episodes that we've done on how to do that.
Yes. Go back and listen to some of those.
Go back and listen to some of those. But yeah, keep that honesty, keep that openness, show your spouse faithfulness and even the little things. And that's important.
Yeah. So another reason you might feel like you've lost your spark is that you're no longer making sex a priority.
Yeah, sex is one of those things that help make a difference between being a roommate and a soulmate. Intimacy and sex is how we connect. It's how we reconnect. We talk about this a lot, and we didn't want to leave it out because if you're not feeling a connection to your spouse, a lot of it may have to do with a lack of sex in your marriage right now. And maybe you need to talk to your spouse about that. Maybe you need to have one of those goals where you go, this week we are really going to spend some time making it a goal to be intimate several times, whatever it takes. And it is important. We did a marriage challenge on here the other day where we challenged y'all to be intimate 5 days in a row. and it's hard to not reconnect and feel something for your spouse that you're continually intimate with and having sex with, and that's a beautiful thing. And that is one of the reasons God created it for your marriage. It is for fun. It is for pleasure. It is for procreation, but it is to connect and reconnect a man and a woman together over and over and over.
Yeah, God knew, that it just is a strong glue in marriage. That's how He designed it. It just bonds a husband and a wife together, and so. That it's important for feeling that spark. And a lot of times, we've talked about this too on different episodes, there may be a difference in sex drives, and you may think, well, that's just me and I just don't have an interest in it. And, but a lot of times it boils down to some hormonal imbalances and some things like that. And, we can't say it enough that please don't let your pride or thinking that's just the way I am get in the way of having a healthy sex life with your spouse. You can see a doctor and they can help. We promise you.
Yeah, that is exactly right. And we've talked about scheduling sex, and that doesn't mean you write down next Thursday sex at 7:00. It just simply means you communicate and you go, hey, tonight let's work on getting the kids in bed early tonight, or hey, if we don't, let's work really hard tomorrow to have some time for each other at the end of the day. And
yeah, that's true, because a lot of times it may not be hormones at all. It may just boil down to busyness, and you're tired, and you've put everything else in front of it, and that is a big enemy of sex.
I will say this: a healthy marriage is not built on a sex life. At the same time, if you want a healthy marriage, you've got to pursue some intimacy and some sex life in it as well. Those two are connected, very much so.
Yes.
Those two are connected.
They do go hand in hand.
And we know that there are issues sometimes in marriages where maybe someone can't for some medical reason.
Sure.
There is something physical. And we've talked about this on some other podcasts. And there's some other things that can happen, some other ways in which you can be intimate with your spouse. But it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of effort to go around that, because God has created sex to connect and reconnect couples, and that's an important thing.
Yeah. So that kind of leads us into this, the busyness part of it that can affect your sex life. But if you make everything more important than your marriage, it's going to affect your spark. Marriage shouldn't be moved to the back burner for anything. It should come before school and careers and kids and hobbies and jobs. And we're not saying to neglect these things, because those are all good, important things that you have to give your attention to. But it's easy sometimes to just, move marriage to the back burner and say, we're too busy for sex. We don't have time to go on a date. All of those things. It's easy to push that to the back burner when you have loads of responsibilities on your plate. But you have to figure out a way to balance, to prioritize, and to keep your marriage on the front burner.
That's a really good point. And I think you got it nailed on balance and prioritize. It's got to be one of those things. And we understand making ends meet sometimes tough. You have to work long hours. And you've got to be able to pay for houses and things that you have, but work hard to find time and make time for your spouse.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting. We saw a statistic the other day that said about 82% of wives said they would take less money if it meant they could be at home with their husband more often. Meaning, it didn't matter who's doing the working, just that, hey, we'll take a little less if we can actually have more time together. That it's not about let's try to make more and have less time. It's, hey, I would rather have more time with my spouse than I would have a little extra money.
Yeah.
And that's an important thing.
It is important. And it all comes down to making time. We talked about scheduling, and you may have to schedule you have to schedule this just like you do everything else. You may have to look ahead of time and say, when can we go on a date?
We've had our date for December on our calendar for 2 months.
For a long time, yes.
2 months, and we've planned around it.
Plan ahead.
There are things that have come up, and we're not doing it that night. That's our night.
That's right. And you may just have to say, kind of look ahead and go, Tuesday looks like a little bit quieter day on our schedule, let's just make Tuesday our day. And every chance we get, we're going to try to spend a little bit of time together. Whether it's, sitting down to drink a cup of coffee for 10 minutes, if that's all you can get. Maybe, you try to take a quick walk around the park. Whatever it is, you may not be able to go on a date that day, but just, make that day the day that you try to sneak in as many minutes together as you can here and there in between all the responsibilities. That may just be what you have to do sometimes.
The average couple spends 4 minutes a day together, and that's not enough.
It's not enough.
Not enough.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't mean watching a movie together. That means 4 minutes of
face-to-face conversation.
Walking together, dating, just fisting together.
Yes.
Got time for one more?
We got time for another one.
All right. If you've lost a spark, it could be because you are tearing down instead of building up, that you're being more critical than you are complimentary to your spouse.
I can imagine that would greatly affect some sparking in a marriage.
Yeah, if you heard negative all the time.
Why would you want to be close and intimate with somebody that just tears you down all the time? So work on that. It's important that you compliment more than you criticize, that you build each other up, that you are each other's biggest fan. You've probably heard the 5-to-1 ratio, that you need to be saying 5 things positive to every, one thing negative that you say. And we realize, there are times when you have to say, honey, please pick your socks up out of the floor, or, whatever it is. But your spouse has got to be hearing a whole lot more positive than negative. They need to be hearing, that they're handsome, that they're a great cook, that they're a good dad, that they're, a good mom, all these things build up.
Every day.
And that will help the spark in marriage.
That's exactly right. So there's about 8 ways we've thrown out here for couples to kind of go, hey, which ones of these do we need to work on? We want to be positive in this podcast, but we also want to be real. And sometimes you have to go and do a little bit of a relationship check and go, how are we doing on these? Is there some of these we need to do a little bit better on? And kind of go from there. Yeah.
Yep. We hope that we said at least 1 or 2 practical things that you could, say, hey, we can do that today. We can start doing that. Because that's what we want to do. We want to help improve marriages.
That's exactly right. Yep. We want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas next week.
We're going to take a little break. I think at least next week, maybe 2 weeks. We're not sure, but we're going to take a little bit of a break during the holiday time.
We're excited about coming back. We've got a podcast we're working on right now that is New Year's resolutions for your marriage. How to step up in your marriage in 2022. So we're excited about that. But we hope y'all have a blessed week. Thank y'all for joining us, and we will see y'all again.
See you next week. Or